The Discovery, Chapter 13, Part 3. Midnight happily hopped onto the couch and laid down on top of David. She rested herself on his lap and took a lazy sip from her hot chocolate. A happy smile plastered itself on her face as she laid further into David's lap and the warmth emanating from his body. David brought his free hand down to Midnight's ears and lightly scratched at the fuzzy extremities. They twitched slightly at the touch, but stayed firm once Midnight let out a happy coo of encouragement.
Right there, that's the spot.
Midnight said, her mind drowning in ecstasy.
Oh, you need to scratch my ears more often.
I would love nothing more than to scratch your ears for as long as you want, David said through a wide smile.
Don't tempt me. I'll hold you to that.
And I would be okay with it. After a couple of hours, the final snowflakes had fallen, and a few inches of snow now covered the outside world in a brilliant white hue. Finally, the world had come to rest, and the only thing that dared move in that perfect scene was the tips of the trees as the gentle winter wind blew over them. Even Midnight's house and all its inhabitants were quiet and peaceful. David was laid on his back on the couch, with Midnight happily laying on his chest. She managed to wrap all four of her hooves around David's form in some way or another, and every few minutes, she would ensure he was still awake, to scratch her ears by planting a small kiss on his nose or lips. Each time she did so, a small smile found its way onto David's face, and he scratched Midnight's ears in thanks. The outside world was meaningless to them now. The only thing that mattered was that they had each other.
If I had known that you would be this affectionate, I would have told you that I liked you a lot sooner,
David said, in response to another kiss from Midnight.
If I had known that you felt the same way, I would have told you a long time ago too,
Midnight said.
You can thank Tia for that. She gave me the confidence to finally tell you. The funny thing is that you were the first mare I even considered. I guess, deep down, I kinda always knew I'd end up falling for you. Oh, thanks, big guy. Well, believe it or not, you're the first human I've ever fallen for.
Midnight teased. David responded by placing another loving kiss on Midnight's lips. She smiled from the affection, and leaned forward to keep David from breaking the kiss. Before long, yet another slow dance of their tongues was brought about, and time seemed to slow to a crawl. Reluctantly, they broke the kiss, both wearing dopey smiles.
Would you believe me if I told you that I thought you'd be grossed out with me for liking you?
David asked.
I think I felt the same way. I've never been so happy to be so wrong before,
Midnight responded.
I'll be honest, it's been hard to keep my feelings to myself these last couple of months.
Well, now you don't have to worry about that anymore. David scratched the inside of Midnight's ear, earning a happy sigh and nuzzle from the unicorn. From David's angle, the turquoise corners of Midnight's cutie mark briefly appeared in his vision as she nuzzled her head further against his throat.
Hey, Mid?
David asked.
Why did you join the Royal Guard in the first place? I mean, your cutie mark is a shooting star, not anything medical related. I figured you would have gone into astronomy, or something like that.
David remarked.
Well, not every pony can make a living off of their talents. I did try to follow my goals and be an astronomer. I even had dreams of being the first pony to leave the planet on her own free will.
Midnight sighed.
But the job market for that field and others like it is so small and already saturated as it is, that I couldn't find work.
David gently rubbed Midnight's back with his hand, encouraging her to continue.
I graduated school and went on my way, trying to find work. But after a year of constantly getting rejected, I ran out of options. I felt like a bum, living off my parents while I constantly got rejected over and over.
Hey, you're not a bum. I told you before that you're the strongest pony I know, and I know Celestia. That should tell you something, David said, the honesty in his tone warming Midnight's heart.
Oh, thanks, David. Well, I guess after a year of that and no money to go back to school to study something else, I decided the guard was the only thing I could really do. I made the decision one day, and the next week I was off to boot camp. That's where I became a medic, and, well, you know the rest.
Midnight finished, a slight sadness present in her voice.
Why didn't you ever talk about it?
David asked, gently.
Well, I never even got my hoof in the door. There just wasn't anything to talk about. Besides, it was almost 6 years ago.
David pulled her slightly closer and kissed her warmly.
I'm sorry you didn't get the opportunity you deserved. You would have made a great astronomer.
David comforted her.
Thank you. But it's not all bad. If I hadn't ended up being a medic, I wouldn't have ever met you. I probably would have ended up in Manhattan or Las Pegasus. All things considered, I'm glad things went the way they did. I wouldn't have you otherwise.
Midnight said, through a warm smile.
Well, if that's how you feel, then I feel the exact same way. I mean, if you ended up in Manhattan, I would have died on that mountain.
David said with a grin.
And Equestria would be all the lesser for it. Thank you.
David said, before planting another kiss on Midnight's muzzle. David and Midnight shared a quiet moment. The warmth of their slow breaths mingled in the air between them, and heated their faces and bodies as they warmed each other. The crackling fire was nearing its end, and the sun now soared high in the sky. The small fire's radiant heat was nearly gone, and the fire itself was down to its last legs. With their fuel gone, the last flickering flames died out, and just the red-hot embers remained. The house was quiet and calm. Midnight and David laid together in each other's arms, and the outside world seemed to just fade away. The only reminder of the cold outside world was the occasional breeze that blew against the windows, and carried some free snow along with it. That is, until a bright white light appeared above David and Midnight, and a loud pop startled them from their love-induced daydreaming. Both David and Midnight looked up at the source of light and noise to find only a small scroll falling through the air. It landed on Midnight's back with a quiet plop, and with a quick burst of magic, Midnight levitated it into the air in front of them. Celestia's crest was clearly displayed on the scroll, with David's name elegantly written underneath in cursive.
It's from the princess. For you.
Midnight said, as she levitated the scroll into David's hands and rolled onto her back to read the letter with him.
I wonder what she wants.
David thought aloud as he opened the scroll.
David, I have some news that I think you'll be very interested to hear concerning our last conversation. Please come to the castle at your earliest convenience. I look forward to seeing you again. I'm sure you'll find this development quite exciting. Your friend, Princess Celestia. Well, it sounds like she has some good news for you. We should go see her. Oh, we could tell her about us too!
Midnight said, excitement filling her voice.
Sounds good to me. If I know her, she'll be off the walls when she hears about us.
David replied with a smile.
What did you guys talk about last time? That seems to be what this is about.
Midnight questioned.
Well, she kinda gave me some advice. Honestly, I don't think I would have had the courage to tell you how I felt if it wasn't for her.
David explained.
Alright. But we have to tell Princess Luna and Cadence too if we see them.
Midnight said, thoughtfully.
Sure, but any particular reason? 'Cause they pretty much did for me what Princess Celestia did for you. Without them, I probably would have been too scared to tell you how I felt.
Midnight said, with a light chuckle.
Wait, they were all playing matchmaker with us? Tia, you snake in the grass.
David said with a smile.
Well, either way, I'm really, really glad they did. Me too. Let's go tell them the good news.
David replied.
Sure, but then we're coming right back here and continuing last night.
Midnight said, wiggling her eyebrows.
You know me so well, I was just gonna say that.
David said with a grin. They shared one more kiss before Midnight hopped off the couch with David close behind. They got their winter apparel and headed to the door. After braving the initial chill once again, they made way for Canterlot. The city bustled with ponies as they prepared for the incoming Hearthswarming Eve celebrations. Ponies decorated their houses and businesses while the fillies and colts played in the snow. Ponies were so busy that they barely noticed Midnight and David as they made their way through the city. A few ponies gave a friendly wave, and some still shied away from him. but most of the ponies regarded David with an air of familiarity. A quiet nod or a friendly "hi there" were thrown David's way from many ponies, and it only made his spirits soar even higher. Still wondering what Celestia got in store for them. Anywho, let's get on to our snowy donators. Top donators are 630, BadassWaffle, Only One Thing, Ceru, Orion, IronSky, and Jessie Smith. Darkside, Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel, Skies, Austin, Rolan, Stuhex, Swordbrother, Mortar, Omicron, Library, Rinside 9852, Will, Chris, Twinkie, Rides, Whole Shadow Moon, Luigi 88, Chancellor Crust, Big Smoke 369, Bobcat, JJF, and many more amazing people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.